The Book of Psalms, verse 7. The law of the Lord is perfect, refreshing the soul. The statutes of the Lord are trustworthy, making wise the simple. Okay, so, hi everybody, this is Christian RPG Gamers. So, I guess for today's video, I just wanted to give some of my thoughts about, there's a video game called Path to Exile. And I mean, I don't really have a script for this or anything, but I just wanted to give some of my thoughts about it. I don't know how the sound's gonna look to me on, or the sound's gonna come off as. It might be loud. I've been kind of adjusting the sound on like the background footage. I think I turned the sound effects off so there's only music, but we'll have to see what happens. I guess for today's video, I just wanted to just give some of my thoughts about it. Okay, so I think one thing I would start off with the game is this. There really isn't any kind of like real story to it. Path to Exile, it's like there is a very small story, but it's not much, to be honest, at the end of the day. So it's like maybe a couple hours long throughout the whole game, and you kind of have to put some bits and pieces together. And I honestly, I think I mostly just kind of skimmed over or skipped the very small one they had at the beginning. Again, it's not a game where you really care about the story. Okay, but I'll also just say that I think I played this game right now currently for about I think I played it about maybe about 5 hours or so far. But so by no stretch of the imagination am I like some expert on it or something. But I will say, I mean, I've had a pretty good time. I mean, it's mostly a free-to-play game. I would argue that you can spend some money, but it's also the kind of game where it's not really obligated or expected that you have to just spend tons and tons and tons of money. Obviously, in a free-to-play style game, you should spend money. I mean, you should spend something. At least if you're going to play the game for a very long time, you should try to find a way to just give them some money, right? Because otherwise, you're either getting the product completely for free, or they're just going to collapse. But yeah, again, so I put it in the play. I think it's a PS4 game. I put it in my PS5. I think supposedly they're in the process of making a new version, like a Path to Exile 2. Now, I don't know when that's going to come out. And I think they're working on something. It might take them a couple months to get more finalized, but okay. I mean, I'll try to put some kind of a Christian spin on this message too. We'll see what happens with that. But overall, it's kind of like your standard like an action RPG style game, where you could just start out with like maybe, I don't know, there's like 4 to 6 characters you could just choose from. It's like a fighter, a ranger, a magic user. They have a couple spin-off classes. I think there's also like a paladin. So when I initially started the game out, I mean, I think I played as like a paladin. You're like a fighter. You're a fighter style hero who uses like in holiness from God, basically like a divine smite power. And there's also the skill trees and stuff are pretty daunting, but the game overall I feel like is pretty simple. It's not like super complex. It's a little bit like intimidating at first, but and also there is some MMO or online aspects to it. Now, I haven't gotten that far into it. I've mostly just been playing single player, but you can interact with other people, and you see them in your little hub, but you're not really like obligated to have to be around other people necessarily. So most of the game, so the basic premise is that you basically just go through a map. They have like a big map that you start out in, and you just go through the map, and you fight against a bunch of enemies, and like there's large mobs of enemies that'll come at you, and basically you just fight your way through it. And eventually there's like some kind of like a mini boss or like smaller level, more elite enemies. You gotta defeat them, and then you go through a little portal or a little area to the next area. It brings you to a new map. And there's also just a bunch of loot. So, and you pick up a lot of stuff. And then you want to upgrade your character. And you basically just fight these different maps. You try to go from one map to the other. I think that they're probably at least, I would argue they're at least semi-organized. Or no, like semi-randomized. So yeah, and then I mean, to be honest with you, that's really about the basic idea of the game. It's very simple in theory, but it can get more complex. And again, like the goal, I feel like, is you're trying to get to the end of you're basically just trying to beat all the different map areas you're just progressing forward. Again, it focuses strongly on gameplay over anything else, which I can respect, because I mean, I do like this kind of games. These are actually some of my favorite type of games. If I'm being honest with you, I've never really played Diablo. I know that's very similar to this type of game. I played a lot of different games like this though. So like I played games like the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. I played a game called I think it was like Dungeon Siege 2. Or I even played the first one a little bit. I think it's the third one. I don't think I really played the other one they made. But I mean I played. I think it was a game called Entrian Odyssey, like 4, like the 3DS. So it's like I played games. You know, I played a lot of games like these. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other stuff out there, and I played other games similar to it. So it's like, I mean, I kind of understand the basics of it. Again, they give you a light story. You don't even really need a story in it. It's just you go through the map. Yeah, it's just about just have like you just want to get good. You want to fight your enemies and just. Oh yeah, the other game that reminds me of this game a very high amount is a game called there's an old PC game. It's called Fate. I think there's a Fate 1. If there's a Fate 2, there might even be a third one, to be honest. I think I've only played the first 2 Fates. They're also very, very hard. Like, I'm gonna be real with you. But yeah, if you got a PC that you think at least has some kind of power, I mean, it's an old game. I mean, I recommend checking them out. They're definitely a fun game to play. But yeah, I mean, and then also you get these little health vials and mana vials, or like you call it, like stamina or mana, and you use it to give yourself your energy. You get your health, and then every time you kill X amount of enemies, it restores an extra pool to your vials or something. And then it keeps your progress when you fight enemies. And then when you die, you just you go back to the respawn point on the map. And then all the enemies still have the same amount of damage you dealt to them. So the game, I would say overall, is honestly, I feel like, a pretty fair game. I mean, it has, it has challenge to it, but it's pretty fair at the end of the day. Especially if you build like a good build or you know what you're doing, it's probably not like an impossible game to beat. Yeah, but overall, I mean, I've had a pretty good time, and sometimes I just like to just go out and just explore a map and just beat a bunch of dudes up, get a bunch of good loot, and just keep going on. And there is enjoyment to that, and not worrying about all that other stuff. But and then again, like, I think that one of the other big issues is the skill tree. And again, I think that this game would honestly, I think a major improvement or a major aspect of this game is if they gave you periodic, like a respec. Apparently, you can get a respec at like the end of the game, but I feel like if every major milestone they just let you have a free respec or something, or you could pay a small amount of coin or something. Again, then people wouldn't feel as daunted by the skill tree. if it was easier to respec, like, every major chapter or something, you could just do a respec, or you get a little free little respec token or something you could just use. It would make it a lot easier, and then people wouldn't be as worried about the skill tree. Or to be honest, maybe they just let you change your class or change your respec or something, or periodically, or they would give you at least at some point. And I think if they did that, then the game, again, at least it wouldn't be daunting. So in the game, they had this massive like web of skills you can invest into, and different classes I think have different. Again, to be honest, I haven't read through all the skills, and supposedly, I mean, again, like, this is the thing that it's both interesting, but it's also kind of like piss offable, where like you almost have to you have to go on YouTube or on Google or something and look at a full scale guide, and you almost have to plan your guide before you even play the game, because there's so many different routes you can go down. And I mean, that is very daunting, and it's also very stressful. So I mean, I kind of just going down the original, more vanilla tree right now. I took some passive buffs. Again, the game is not super new player friendly, I would say, but it's not like that bad either. I would say if you want to play the game, you should probably just play a character for like kind of what I did. Play a character for like a couple hours, maybe even like 5 hours or so. Just kind of learn the basics of the game, and just kind of test out and experiment some of the different classes, or maybe look at like play one class, like a normal class, and just kind of look at all the different hypothetical ideas. Because like you can only go so far in the skill tree initially, anyways. So maybe if you know a style you already like to begin with, or you're interested in, and so like you really can't go that wrong either. It's not like you can't really build a bad build necessarily, unless you're doing a really bad job. I think there's like a strength, a dexterity, and like an intelligence. And there might be a little bit of some like more neutral area too. So you kind of have to. It's like you really shouldn't play all three. You should just try to focus on one and maybe splash another. Again, once you get far enough into the game, and there's also equipment you can do. But again, I feel like there are limits to just how many different customizations there are. So like there is like 3 different types of builds, but there's not like 100 different builds. So like you can be strength. They have like they have more melee. They have ranged. Again, as a Christian, I don't really agree with like magic necessarily, but I mean, again, they have a few different varieties, and I mean, it's like you get like there's like 7 or 8 different weapons with some shields. They have some wands. They have some different bows and stuff. It's like I feel like again you can test them all. You can test them out, and they also have these little orb slots you can put in, where you can like put some passive effects and buffs. Again, probably the biggest critique, and I mean, I've heard some other people talk about it. I mean, it is a very daunting game to new players, but it's really not that complicated once you get in, at least a little bit in. I mean, sure, there is some challenge to that, but that's also part of the fun of the game. You want to play a game, you want to learn an experience, and maybe you can't build a perfect character the first time you play it or something. But I mean, what do you really do? That's just kind of the fun of the game. And what reason would you have to want to play a perfect character? Or I mean, like, you can't. It's just not always possible. But there is truth that there are, again, and that's also the fun of this type of game. There's just so many different builds you can do to fight against enemies, and like they have like certain equipment that gives you like just hard armor. There's certain equipment that gives you these like little like energy shields, and there's like you can be more versatile, and certain effects and certain skills interact with different types of stuff. Again, there's just a lot of stuff you can mess around with, which I think is very interesting, but it's also kind of stressful at the same time. So I mean, there is that. I mean, I don't always want to play a video game to be stressed at the same time. How long is this? Oh. But overall, I mean, I've been having a good time. Now, I've mostly just been using the smite ability, I think that's it's kind of like a paladin. So apparently you can swap out your this little orb gives you the smite ability, which you can put in different weapons. And then and then enemies drop. Obviously, it's an ARPG. It's called an action RPG. So yeah, like enemies drop different loot, and there's different tiers of weapons, different tiers of equipment you find. And I'm pretty sure, again, I haven't played it that long, but from what I can tell, I'm pretty sure the different rooms in different areas, they respawn after a period of time, but they're also different levels. So like if you go to the original area, you're like level 2 or something, and like I think my character right now is about level 8 or level 10. So if I fight against level 2 enemies, sure, they're gonna be very easy, but they're gonna drop loot, but the loot's not gonna be that great, and it's not gonna be something I can really use. And you can go into town, and you can trade your different you can kind of sell the loot you don't need, and they give you these little scrolls that you can use, like. And again, it's somewhat complex, but it's simple in theory, but complex in reality. You can sell them for these little, like, you get like the scrolls of wisdom unless you identify items. Again, it is very similar to the video game Fate in a lot of ways. But yeah, like you can identify your stuff, and again, they call it, like, quote unquote, like magic items and stuff. Again, it just gives you special, like, bonuses and buffs. And you can also, like, you can transmute certain items to some certain random chances, and certain enemies might drop. You might find these little scrolls. I feel like, again, you can get like a portal back to town. Tune in out of town. Again, this game, to be honest, every single second I'm thinking about it, it immediately reminds me of the old video game Fate. It's so similar. It's like literally based off. It might even be built by the same people, to be honest. But yeah, you go back to town, and again, like you can sell the items for the scrolls. But my only really complaint, I feel like, is like they just don't give you nearly enough inventory space. Maybe there's a way to, like, spend money or something on it, but I feel like for the character, there just isn't enough. It's like, you go through a map and you pick up the loot. It's like, it just, to me personally, it feels like I feel like you almost need like twice the amount of inventory size that they give you. It's like there just isn't enough space. Like, I mean, you almost have to go back to town and you pick up items, you have to sell them back and go back and forth. It's a little bit tedious. Like, if they just give you a little bit bigger of a inventory space, or maybe there's like maybe there's like an in-game backpack you can get or something. I mean, I'm not that far into it, but it's like half the time I have to just drop stuff I find. Because, like, again, like you can pick up you can only really use what you need. And so if you don't need it, it's just like, is it really that valuable? And you can sell it, but I don't know. I mean, I've heard some stuff back and forth, but overall, I think it's I've had a pretty good time with it. It's pretty interesting. I mean, I guess I would argue, like the Christian point of view. I mean, to tell you the truth, like the Christian perspective, I mean, there's not really much of a story, and there's a very light, minimal story. I mean, I don't even think I listened to it. It was like 20 minutes, or it was like, I think it was like 20 minutes altogether so far. I don't really care. If there is one, I probably just skipped it, to be honest. I just don't care. And the people who made this game, they don't seem to care either. So, it's just mostly a game where it's just a video game where you play it, you go through a map, you just fight stuff, you get loot. I mean, there's not much more to it in that sense. So, I mean, obviously, from like a Christian point of view, there is like magic in it and stuff, and there is some very, like, it has some like dark aspects to it. It has some fantasy themes. I don't really think overall it's like that, like, quote unquote bad of a video game. I wouldn't say that, I mean, I don't really know. I mean, yeah, it has some naughty stuff occasionally, but it's like, it's really just not that bad. But I mean, you should keep your wits about you. I mean, I personally would recommend you probably don't play like a sorcerer or something. It can be again, like, especially since you have other options. Like, again, like, you can play a paladin. I mean, I know that the lines of morality can turn a little gray. But, like, as a Christian, like, you just kind of pretend that, like, in holiness, that you're worshiping God and not whatever being they have in the game. And again, like, you can play as like paladins, a little bit of a tank, a little bit of a melee character. Again, you could play as like a ranger or like a fighter. And I think they have a couple other classes. I mean, you got to be careful about it, right? Maybe go through and just kind of screen it for yourself a little bit, and look at some of the different again, like in a game like this, just look at some of the different classes they give you, and just think about what kind of a character build you want to do. And like, again, some of the classes might be a little bit evil, so try to be careful there, I suppose. But overall, I mean, there's really nothing that dangerous or bad about the game. I mean, other than some of the obvious, right? But yeah, overall, I mean, I've had a pretty good time with it, and I've enjoyed myself. It might feel at times like a little bit boring or a little bit vanilla and stale. I mean, I do just enjoy going through and fighting a bunch of stuff. And I mean, again, if you spent some money on it or something, that'd be good. I mean, I feel like it's probably worth at least $20 worth of money if you bought some cosmetics, or maybe they had some in-game like permanent upgrade you can get for all your characters or something. Or if you play this game for a very long time, like spending up to $50 on it or something, I definitely think it's a good investment. And they're working on a second one, from what I can tell. So, although I've never really played Diablo, I mean, I've seen some footage. I mean, again, there's not much of a story to Diablo either. I mean, I think the latest one they made, like Diablo 4, has a little bit of a story. It's not the kind of game where you play the story, to be honest. I mean, I might even just skip the story. Like, it's just kind of lackluster. The point of a lot of these games aren't the story, it's just about playing the game. But yeah, overall, I have a good time. I might have to try out I'd be interested in maybe playing like the ranger class, or maybe playing like a fighter or something. And I don't know what other classes they have. I can't remember all the other ones at the top of my head. I think they have some kind of a sorcerer. I think they might have like a demon hunter or something, or some kind of a shaman or something. But yeah, like, it's a lot of fun. You go through the map. Again, there's so many different choices and so many different options, and it's just a good experience. And sometimes I don't feel like I need a big story. There are times where I like a big story, but there's also times where I can appreciate a developer just focusing only on the gameplay, and just focusing down on it and niching down on the gameplay, and letting people who want to be like, people who are great like designing like RPG style like stories and stuff, let the people who are better at focusing on the story, let them focus on the story, and you just make a great game people can play. I think that's fine. It's subjective, but there's also wisdom to niching down a bit too. But yeah, it's just a fun game, and if you're interested, consider checking it out. And there are some cool boss fights. And I'm also gonna be honest with somebody, like, this game is not necessarily easy. Like, obviously I'm in the beginning of the game. Some of the boss fights, I had to do a couple times. Granted, I also didn't really know what I was doing. So yeah, as the advice of a lot of other people out there, consider watching a guide on this, or figuring out your build ahead of time. And okay, so I think that's the end of that video that I made. How long is this? Yeah, okay, so I ended that video. Yeah, so yeah, let them. Feel free to write some of your comments below on if you have any Christian thoughts on this. Also, what like, what kind of, again, tell me, like, let me know what kind of class you played. If you're somebody who's played this game, what class did you pick, and why did you pick that class? And do you have any like tips and tricks for people to get better at the game, or just what are some of your thoughts? Or do you like ARPG games, or are they not your thing? Or just try to be friendly, right? All right, yeah, thanks for watching. God is good.